Hi guys, welcome again to my YouTube channel, and today we're talking about startup versus big tech. Since this is one question you need to ask yourself before applying for your first job. There are things you need to understand before knowing what kind of company to go for. Before proceeding to telling you or helping you answer this particular question by telling you things you should know about this either of these two sizes of companies, I think it's worth it for us to actually define what is a startup and what is a big tech company or corporation. So a startup is simply any company or any venture formed by one individual, a group of friends, or even a family with the sole purpose of bringing a new product to market. So the whole point, the whole gain of a startup is bringing or building something from ground up and pushing it to market. So that is what a startup is. And big tech, on the other hand, there's not much need to explain what it is. So just picture Amazon, Facebook, or even that big IT outsourcing company in your country that probably employs 5,000 to 10,000 people. So moving on, when you're starting, should you choose a startup or a big tech company? That is the question we're answering today. And I would like to do this in terms of I would like to structure this as, pros of startup, cons of startup, pros of big tech, cons of big tech. But if we do it that way, I'll end up repeating a lot of stuff since the pros of startup happens to be the cons or disadvantages of a big tech corporation. So we're just going to go with that flow and vice versa. Let's start with why you might want to work for a startup. So the pros of working for a startup company is, first of all, especially when you're starting, the code base is little and most definitely modern. So the code, whatever it is that must have been written by others, most likely doesn't span far beyond a year or two, could even be a couple of months. And the technologies they would be using, you bet, would be new technologies, recent technologies. So you're not hitting your head on the wall trying to find the proper documentation for something. That's one. Secondly, you would definitely have a better relationship with people since the size of the company is small. So looking at just these 2 points when it comes to a big tech corporation, the code base of big tech is most definitely going to be huge. Picture a company as huge as Microsoft that has been in business for several decades. You bet you'd be rest assured that the code base would be very, very scary. And not just that, it most definitely will contain a lot of older technologies, older concepts, older architectures, and all of the stuff. So you definitely would struggle with that. Not saying it's not possible to, be in that kind of environment and make it. Yes, it is, but it's more challenging, especially when you're just starting. And when it comes to relationship with people can be really terrible because when a company has hundreds of thousands of employees, everyone is simply just, stepping in and stepping out, stepping in and stepping out. There's not really that much environment. There's not that convenient environment that is conducive enough to get to know someone since everyone is pretty much just coming to do their stuff and bounce out. Looking at the pros of startup, another benefit of startup is creative freedom. So what I mean by creative freedom is, so you're working on a project and you figured, oh, we could actually do this way. Oh, this additional feature most definitely will bring added benefits or some market value. So when it comes to a startup, it's easier for you to present any idea with regards to your creativity and it wouldn't get shut down. In fact, from the process of getting it from your head to the management, it is way faster because there's like little hoops that you have to jump through. Whereas with a big corporation, it has to go through a lot of people. So your manager, project manager, whatever, product owner, it's a whole lot of people that has to, see this particular idea, and that would take several weeks, if not months even. That is if it would even be implemented or even looked at. Another benefit of startup is that it is easier to move up the ladder. What do I mean by this? Most definitely, if you're getting into a company, you're looking forward to getting promoted, moving up to a higher position, and even higher after that. With a startup, the number of people there internally is not as huge as how it is in a big tech corporation. So while people are applying from outside the company, that's normal, companies tend to give more preference to their current employees because there's been that level of trust that has been established. So when it comes to a big tech corporation, so you most likely will be applying for the role of a senior UI designer or senior full stack developer or something like that. And you'll be rest assured there are probably 30, 35 people from inside the company applying for that particular role. We're not even talking about people that are applying from outside the company. But with a startup, this is really not a problem because the number of people is actually few. So it would make sense to promote someone who is inside the company for that higher role and then hire someone from outside the company to replace the role that the person is leaving. The final thing I think you need to consider as a benefit of a startup is the ability to understand the business easily. So while we are chasing the 9 to 5 to get the bag to be able to sustain our life, we all want to get to that point where we do our own thing. And doing your own thing, whether as a freelancer or going to open your own business to do IT outsourcing or whatever it is, whatever the case may be, you certainly and most definitely need to know how the business is run. You need to understand the business side of IT. So with a startup, since there isn't really a lot of people in the company, it is way easier to understand the processes. Most likely the person who is probably like, you probably know who is working in HR, you know who is working as a project manager. Everything is in your face, so it's easier for you to understand the business decisions that are made, and even most likely you'll be part of those decisions. So when it's time for you to do your own thing, you're already enlightened. You have a lot of ideas in your head business-wise compared to someone who is working for a big corporation that doesn't know how things get done. They just see probably a mail that this has been approved or this is going to be, put to place in a couple of weeks. Pardon me for flying with the speed of light. I really don't like it when my videos are that long because it is important for me that you come, get what you're looking for, and move on. So we've looked at this from the pros side of a startup versus the bad side of big tech, or let's not say bad side, disadvantages more, so to say. So let's flip it and go the other way around. What would you imagine as the pros of big tech? Well, this is simply the cons of a startup. Well, the pros is one, there is a much more stable and secure environment or job, so to say. You're not going to, the chances that you will lose your job is little to none. Not saying it's not possible. In fact, this shouldn't even be a point for you to consider when going for a big corporation, simply because if there's one thing we've learned with COVID, it's that anything is possible. I know a lot of big tech companies that had to downsize even with the fact that they were still in business. It just made sense to be able to cut down on some projects that weren't really bringing in that much for the company. So while big tech is more stable and secure than startup, still bear it in mind that anything can happen. You obviously can be let go. Another benefit of a big tech corporation as opposed to a startup is that there is a stable work-life balance, and this is something that for a lot of people is important, especially people who have families. In most cases, you see people who just have a new baby or 2 kids that are still young. It is important to have that schedule, say 8 to 4, 9 to 5, whatever it is, Monday to Friday, as opposed to a startup where in most cases you would be asked to stay for longer hours. You're working 10 hours, 12 hours. just to meet the deadline. And another point to consider is finances. When it comes to finances, for example, the way a startup gets financed is through venture capitalists, friends and families, sometimes crowdfunding, could even be the government. Whereas with big tech, it's not the case. The business has been running for several years or even decades. So you're not going to be in a position where you won't be able to be paid. Whereas with a startup, that is most likely going to happen. And there are cases where people can actually lose their jobs from startups because a particular source of finance was lost. So a particular investor said, oh, sorry, I'm no longer interested, I'm out. Then in that case, the structure of how money is being spent needs to be readjusted. But with a big tech corporation, the chances of this happening is zero. The last two things we need to consider with regards to working in a big tech corporation is that there are lots of benefits, and benefits is something that matters to a lot of people. So say benefit, when I say benefit, I mean stuff like insurance, gym membership, lots of paid vacation in terms of like number of days, remote work, and all of those stuff. When it comes to a big tech corporation, the benefits are most likely going to be way higher and better as opposed to a startup company. There are companies, in fact, that actually pay for the feeding of their employees on a daily basis. Could not be, maybe it's not 3 square meal, but at least 1 meal per day. And that is also something that matters to some people that are really like keen on saving their money and using it for investments or whatever. The last thing that you need to consider as a pro, as a benefit of working for a big tech company is there is always money allocated for training. With a startup, you are expected to know a lot or pretty much gain this knowledge while working and dialoguing with your colleagues and all that. But with a big tech company, there are lots of, in fact, with my current job role, for example, I came in with zero knowledge of Linux, but there are those funds allocated for particular trainings that your employer would probably, assume that this person can easily pick this up. So it's not a problem. Let's pay for this, get it done, and that's it. So if you want to, build your career and you want to be sure that this can be done without your money, this can be done and, with the sponsorship of a company, then the best way to go would be a big tech corporation. Okay, I know this was all, a lot of details and it was really fast, but to summarize, when you're just starting out, the most important thing you have to bear in mind is you need to understand how to work in a professional environment. And this can be scary when you're starting for the first time. It can be scary. You can feel like you know nothing because you're going to definitely meet people who will throw it to your face and let you know that you're nothing. So in a big size company that has hundreds of thousands of employees, this can be a challenging. This can, pose as a threat. It can be depressing to you. In fact, I know people who, in 6 months into their journey in the IT industry, they quit and they're like, I can't do this anymore. And in most cases, it is simply because you started out the wrong way. So figure out a company that has or works with those particular technologies you love. It could be a medium-sized company, 50 people, 70 people, 100 people, whatever the case may be. So long as it is less than 1,000, I can guarantee you that you would have a better working relationship. You would have, a more conducive environment to grow. And then when you get up to that point where you're confident in your skill, you're confident in what you bring to the table, then you can go for a big tech corporation. And with that, that's where we end this video today. I hope I didn't confuse you along the way with so many details that I just spilled. Thank you for watching, guys. See you next Friday.